Today I'm going to show you how to use Google Scholar, which is a part of Google and is free to use, to be able to find peer-reviewed literature. Before we can do that, let's go ahead and define peer-reviewed literature, which is primary research that is conducted by experts in their respective fields that is reviewed by other experts in the same field for authenticity, bias, completeness, and errors before being published in scientific journals in their corresponding fields. For example, a scientist who is doing research on pandas that ends up finding out groundbreaking information about that particular species might submit primary research or peer-reviewed literature to either the science journals Nature or Science to be published in that particular journal or in a volume of that journal. Another example would be medical research that is groundbreaking being published in a peer-reviewed journal such as the New England Journal of Medicine. So let's go ahead and take a look at Google Scholar and give you some examples on how to utilize this website to be able to find peer-reviewed literature. So this is the main screen that comes up. You can go to Google and you can search Google Scholar and it will pull this particular page up, and so this is the page that is here. If you already have a Google account, a Gmail account, you can use your Gmail account, and I would highly suggest that you do that, and I'll show you why here in just a couple of moments, because it makes it just a little bit easier. So here on the home page, you're going to see the big search box here, and just a little bit of trivia here. This little quote that's here, "Stand on the shoulders of giants," is actually part of a quote that was taken from Isaac Newton in 1675, and the full quote is "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Over here is my little picture from my Gmail account or my Google account, and then up here is just a couple of other tools that we can use, and we'll go over these here in just a few minutes. If I was to click my profile for a student, this necessarily doesn't have to be filled out, but if you were a scientist in your field, then you could go ahead and put your affiliation, for example, what particular university that you're working for, your email, your areas of interest, or where you do research, your homepage if you have one. And then you can go through and you can track your particular articles or your citations that are showing up in Google Scholar. So that is what that is for. But as a student, if you're a college freshman or a high school student, that's not what you're going to be using Google Scholar for. You're going to be using it to find peer-reviewed articles in primary journals. And this is just a little taskbar here, and we're going to go over some of this here in just a moment. So from here, you can search anything, and when we're talking about peer-reviewed journals or primary literature, we're talking about anything that's going to be published in any of the branches of science. So behavioral science, social science, your natural sciences, your physical sciences, anything at all that you're going to be searching for that would be a keyword. This is what you're going to look for, and this will help you in doing assignments. If you're writing a research paper, for example, if you're doing a presentation and you want to find research on a topic that you're presenting, that's what you would use this for. We're not going to really talk about the case law. We're just going to go into looking at the different articles, and I'm going to show you how to use this. Now, the beauty of Google Scholar, I mentioned in the beginning, is that this is free. So if you can't get to your library, if you aren't in a university yet or going to college, you're in a high school and you don't have access to a library that has money to be able to have all the different subscriptions to these scientific journals, then this is a great way to find some peer-reviewed literature. And when I say some, what I'm saying is that a lot of times you'll find citations for literally millions of articles, but you won't be able to actually view those articles. It'll take you to a website that asks you to pay for it. However, I promise that for college freshmen, for high school seniors that are needing to find research papers, or if you're just a general layperson and you want to find research papers, Google Scholar will give you plenty of information to be able to do that type of work. It isn't until you get into being a professional scientist or needing to, do a dissertation or a thesis, that you really need to be able to access particular journals, or be able to find, particular articles about certain subjects or what have you. So let's go ahead and type in just a general topic so I can show you what's going to come up next. So this is what a search results page looks for. So as you can see, I've typed in beetles up here, and then I'm going to get about 682,000 results that are going to pull up just in beetles. And this is going to pull not only research from the United States, but research that's being done overseas as well, in India, Germany, Europe, Africa, Australia, you name it. That is something else that does need to be said, is that in some cases you will pull up journal topics or articles that are going to come out in a different language as well. So just be prepared for that. So one of the things that I want you to take a look at on this first particular result that has popped up is that this here in the little bars, that is letting you know this is a book. Okay, so this is not a primary, peer-reviewed article here. This is actually a book, and so books do pull up as well. This next one down here, the ground beetles, Coleoptera, as bioindicators, this is pulling up inside of a journal. And so right here we've got the two authors that are listed. This is the name of the journal that this particular paper showed up in. This is the year. Down below it's going to give you just a little brief blurb from the abstract on this particular article. And then the one thing, and this is the key thing to look for, is anything that appears over here on the side, it's going to link out, and you can see that there's other ones down here below. This is going to link out, and this will actually take you, if I'm to click this, outside to another web page, and it's going to show you the actual paper. So just to give you kind of a scroll through real fast. And so if you're doing research, if you're writing a research paper for a college class, or you're needing information because you're doing a presentation, this is what you're going to be looking for. Just to give you an idea, if I click one, because there's nothing over here right to click, so if I click a title here, what's going to pull up is it's going to take me to Annual Reviews, a website, and it's going to list the different journals. And then from here it'll tell you that you can download it, but usually it'll take you outside to whatever journal that it appeared in. So in this one, the Annual Review of Entomology, it's going to take you outside of there, and it's going to ask you to either sign in if you have an account, or pay to access that particular PDF. And so again, what we're looking for a general layperson or a college freshman or a high school senior is results that are going to show up here that have PDF on them. That's what you're looking for. Alright, so what does all this other stuff down here mean? And here in just a couple of minutes we'll go into another article that I've got pulled up, and we're going to actually go through briefly the different parts of a peer-reviewed article in the primary literature so that you know what it is that you're looking for. But for right now, we're just going to stick to the search page, and we're going to talk just a little bit about what all this is and how you can advance search and so on and so forth. So the first thing that comes up here is this little star, and if you hover over this, each one of these will tell you what it is. And so what this is this is a save button. So if you're looking for primary articles and you want to just save them to come back to them later, you can just click this, it'll save it. And if you go over here to My Library and you click on My Library, it's going to take us to a new page. You'll notice that the very first thing that pops up is the article that we just saved. And if I scroll down through here, you can see all the different other articles that I've saved. And so you can, once you're done with them, you can delete them if you want to. You can export them, so you can email them, or you can put them into a Word document, or RefWorks, which is a topic for a totally different video. You can arrange these by labels, for example. So like here we have search and save for just beetles, so I could go through and just click that and then only have the articles that are showing up that have to do with beetles. So we're going to go back. The next one here, and this is, I promise, the most amazing thing. I remember whenever one of my first professors showed us this in class, And I was so excited because it made things so easy. So as you can see, the little icon that pops up, it says cite. So if I was to click this, the quotation marks here, it's going to pull up and show me how to cite these. And so a lot of times you're working in APA format, so literally you can just come through, once you have an article, you can highlight it, you can copy it, and then you can go ahead and paste it. Down here I talked about RefWorks a moment ago in EndNote, and so right here, if you were saving these into an outside source, which like I said, another video could go into talking about RefWorks or RefMan or EndNote and how those particular pages and applications work. You can save these outside of Google Scholar as well. But again, just for very basic knowledge, again, you can just right click this, copy it, and then you can save it right there into a Word document. And so this really helps save time in citing. Of course, you have the MLA, Chicago, so on and so forth, but again, APA is usually what you're going to be looking for. Alright, so the next little piece that's here, it tells you that it's been cited by 804 people, or 804 other different journal articles. So if we were to click this, it's going to take us to those 804 results. And so again, if you're doing a paper or a project on a particular subject, this is really great because you can kind of fall down a rabbit hole here, and without searching any other terms on the main home page, then you can go through and you can find other journal articles that are going to be on the same topics. And so again, you can just scroll through and you can find anything you want to know, and each one also has cited by, and so you can just keep going all the way back. And a lot of times you can get all the way back to the first article that kind of branched off all of the science that is current. It will all kind of lead back to one particular article, for example, one particular research that was done, maybe 50 years ago or what have you. And so while we're talking about that, just know as kind of a general rule that if you're doing anything in the sciences, if you're using primary literature to be able to reference back, most of the time your professors, your instructors are going to want you to search back only 5 years. So you want current primary peer-reviewed literature, again, 5 years back. And so if you come over here on the side, that's how you can go through and you can click, for example, right now we're on anytime, so this would take us all the way back to say like 1975 or whatever year that the first articles on beetles were being published or the first research was being done. But we can go, since it's 2019, we can go all the way back to like 2015, and capture that 5 years. And so just be aware of that. You can also set a custom range. So say you're looking for a particular article, if you're doing research on a particular disease, and you know that a lot of the research that was done, groundbreaking research was done, in the 1960s, you can do 1960 to 1969 and then search for that as well. This button here, so this is telling you to include citations. So again, what we're talking about is over here, if we didn't want to do that, we just wanted articles, then you would click this and it would pull up just, I'm not sure why that's not working right now. Let's see. The citations, right? So it's including citations. Okay, so just having citations, if it's only citations only, meaning that you can't click out and go anywhere else, it's just going to be just a citation of a book or something that's not online, and it's not showing anything right now, but that's what that is. The next button down here is creating an alert. And so if I wanted to do this, I could click this button. It's going to send it to my email. And the alert query is if anything else comes up about ground beetles being bioindicators, new citations, it'll send me an email and tell me, hey, there's new research that's being done on ground beetles being bioindicators. And then it shows down here kind of sample results as well. And you can also, from the home screen, we'll go back to the home screen, we'll type in another subject, and so we can do an alert query for just entitled Panda. So anything that comes up with Panda, I'd hit create alert and would email me and let me know, hey, anytime research is uploaded it's being published in peer-reviewed journals and it has to do with pandas, it's going to be sent to me. Okay, so we'll go back and finish looking at the rest of this that shows up. So we talked about being cited by. So cited by here, so I went in and I showed you how you can find more and more literature that's been published about beetles. However, this particular number here means a lot as well. And so as you can see, this number is going to vary by article. And so this tells you how many people, how many other research, right, has actually cited this particular article. And that's important because if there's an article that was groundbreaking, usually it's going to be cited a lot of times. And so those are articles that you're going to want to take a look at, especially if you're trying to do research on a particular topic and you want to be well versed on what all went on. And so here, you know, this particular research article, and again it's a PDF, right, was cited by 3,252 different people, which is phenomenal, right? So we know that this particular article that was published in the Journal of Computational Physics back in 1982, this research was groundbreaking in some form or fashion for it to be cited this many different times. All right, and then the last thing down here, of course, we talked about related articles, so this would take us to more articles about this particular Schrodinger's equation. And then there was 9 versions. And so you can see here, well, why does 9 versions matter? So this is particularly important if you're looking at books as well. So we'll use the Bible as an example. And so as you can see here, there's 89 versions of the Bible. And so if I click on this, it's going to pull up all these different versions. So these are all these different websites that you can go to look at the Bible. And if it was a textbook of some type, then a lot of times it'll tell you the different versions, like 5th edition, 6th edition, so on and so forth. So if you wanted to look at different editions, then that's helpful in that particular case as well. Alright, and so then on here you can click through the rest of the little ads that are here. This is going to take you over to WorldCat, and this would tell you where you could find this particular book that was printed in 1994 in a library. So you could put this in. This is basically a catalog of all the libraries in the world. And we're not going to really get into this, but just to show you, so you would type whatever book you're looking for in, you would say find a copy in the library, and then it would show you what libraries may be near you, or you could search by that to tell you what libraries near you would have that particular book. Or as you can see here, you could buy it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So that's what that is. And as you can see, as far as primary reviewed literature, that's not going to show up here because that doesn't necessarily, that's not going to matter, right? So you're more looking at that when you're looking at books. Alright, and so we looked at my library. We've also talked about my profile as well. And then again, you can see down here, if we kept going, then there's just tons and tons, because remember there's 682,000 different articles that have the word beetles in them. And so you can see that there's a lot of these. Here, this is meaning this is at a website again, so HTML, more than likely these are not actual PDFs of the articles. This is just going to link to a website. It would probably give you the abstract, but it's not going to give you the entire article usually. And then again, if we clicked off of this, it's not going to have any citations. So if there was citations in here, which would show up, and you would just be the actual citation. There would be no links to anything. The same thing with patents. Anything that's been a patent that had the word beetle in it, we take that off as well. And again, you can sort by date as well. We talked about being able to search by date, but also we could sort by date as well. And so you can look through, and this is going chronologically, so the last year, and you could go all the way back, like I was talking about earlier, to the beginning of the research. Alright, so the last thing that I wanted to do while we were in Google Scholar, and I've got an article already pulled up here that I had searched out of Google Scholar earlier, is just to talk just briefly about what is within a peer-reviewed primary literature article. And so this particular journal name is right here. This tells you where it was published, and this is the title of the article, the authors, and then this tells you here where these particular scientists work, what their affiliation is with, and then down here is keywords. And so just like how whenever you're searching in Google Scholar through keywords, if you're looking for particular article topics, if you're doing a research paper on a particular animal, for example, or virus or something, you can search for that. So this is the keywords that pull up this particular journal topic. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through how to read this. I just want to kind of give a brief overview. So there's several parts to a peer-reviewed journal article, and so if you pull up an article, there's some articles that are called reviews, and so they're actually reviewing all the primary literature. That's not what you're looking for if you're looking for primary peer-reviewed literature. Primary peer-reviewed literature is literally the report, the research paper that the scientist wrote whenever they were reporting the results of an experiment that they were doing. That's what you're looking for. Well, how do you know, if you're pulling up an article in Google Scholar, that that is a peer-reviewed journal article and not a particular, like a review or literature review, for example? And so a lot of times it'll tell you it's a literature review, but you're looking for certain parts. All primary peer-reviewed literature is going to be set up the same way. Going to have the information that we just went over, and then we're going to have the next part's what's called the abstract. And so this is basically the bluff, the bottom line up front. What is this paper going to be talking about? And that is right here. And so each journal, especially as you go through the years and you move through the different types of science, the journals are going to be set up differently. The page might look differently, because each journal for the authors has a certain way that they want their papers written. And that doesn't matter to you as a reader, but you do need to look for the particular parts, you know, the guts, for example, as you were of the research article. And so the abstract, if you see an abstract, that's a pretty good indication that we're going to be looking at primary peer-reviewed literature. So again, that's just the bottom line up front. What is this particular paper going to be talking about? And so usually you can read that and get a good idea as to whether or not this is going to help you in your search for research that you're doing for class. The next part of this is going to be the introduction. Usually peer-reviewed literature does not tell you that it's the introduction, but that's going to be the very next part that's going to come right after the abstract. And in the introduction, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's telling you, well, why are we doing this particular research? What has been done in the past and other research that brings us to asking this particular question? Because again, peer-reviewed literature, it's science. What is science? Science is a scientific method. It's asking a question, forming a hypothesis, collecting your data, discussing the data, you know, doing statistics, reporting your results, asking more questions, right? And so again, the introduction is just saying, okay, this is what's been done in the past, this is what led us to wanting to know this particular question. And again, a lot of times it's not actually listed as the introduction, but it does come right after the abstract. And we're just scrolling through. So the next part of a peer-reviewed journal article is going to be methods. And sometimes this will say methods and materials. And so what this is this is the part of the peer-reviewed journal that's going to tell you how the scientist did the research. So was this a scientific research that was done in a lab? Was this a field study on an animal that they were doing? And the main key to the methods and materials, and this is something, especially if you're planning on going on into the sciences, that you need to take into consideration, is that this is written, it's written dry, but it's written with the understanding from scientist to scientist that someone can come in 10 years after this paper's written, or even after these scientists are dead, and they should be able to take what is in the materials and methods section of the paper and use that to recreate to a T the same exact experimental setup. Well, why would you want to do that? And the reason why is because you want to make it repeatable to see whether or not the same results come up, right? And so that's where a lot of scientists get hung up. You know, people will say, well, how did they prove that that science was wrong? Well, this is how. You know, someone else comes behind and tries to recreate an experiment with the idea of furthering the knowledge on that particular topic, and they're not able to do that, and so that pulls up red flags. But that's getting all into the scientific method, and so that's again something for another video. But again, materials and methods, or just methods as what it's called here, this is saying how the scientists did the experiment. The next section is going to be the results, and so in the results section, the authors of the primary peer-reviewed article are going to be talking about what they saw. So what did they find? Okay, so for example, here it's talking about 47% of the children were at a nutritional risk, as were 67% of these at-risk children, but only 90% of the not hungry children. So again, just straight up the results. So what did they see? What did they observe when they did this particular experiment? This is also going to be where you're going to find any tables. So for example, this particular paper has tables, and they're talking about the different results that they found. And so this is where you'll see tables, you'll see statistics, a lot of times reported, you know, so you'll have the algebraic equations or what have you that are in here. But again, the results, what did they find, right? And then the next part is this discussion. So here, the results are, again, what did they observe? And the discussions are going to talk about, well, what does that mean? How does that translate into what we already know, or what we thought that we knew, or, you know, what we could move on to? So sometimes you'll have another little blurb down here that will talk about, you know, areas for further research. A lot of times that is included in the discussion, and that'll be in the last couple of paragraphs of the particular peer-reviewed article, and it'll say, you know, hey, you know, for example, here it's talking about indicate the need for further research investigating nutritional risk and its relationship to child academic and psychosocial functioning, etc. And so again, discussion, it's going to say, well, why do we care about the results that we found? What do we think about the results? You know, is there potentially any bias that might have, you know, made it to where we got the results that we got? You know, if, for example, if the researcher is doing, you know, a field study in Africa on African elephants, you know, if they only were able to observe 20 elephants in the wild and they were seeing kind of a weird behaviors, they might address it here. They should address it here in the discussion to say, you know, we're not necessarily sure if this, you know, if this particular behavior is across the board in all elephants. You know, more studies need to be done in other states, other countries in Africa, or what have you, to find out if that's what's going on as well. And then the next to the last part of the peer-reviewed article is going to be acknowledgments. So here's where you'll find if there was funding that was granted. It's going to tell you who funded this particular study. It's going to say, you know, if they needed help figuring out more information. It'll say, you know, well, this is other research that helped us. You know, they helped us in, you know, determining what the statistics meant, or anything like that. So that's going to be found in the acknowledgement. So the same thing is like what you see in a book, right? An author will say, thank you to so-and-so for editing this. Thank you for so-and-so for providing the monies to be able to write this particular book, or so on and so forth. The same thing, like for example, the study was made possible through a grant. So that's going to be in the acknowledgements. And then the final thing is going to be your references. So in the primary literature and the peer-reviewed journal article that I have pulled up, especially in the introduction, they talked a lot about, you know, how they got to this particular point of wanting to study this. And so these were the peer-reviewed articles that came before them. This is the science that was before this science. And so this is the same information that you would find in Google Scholar underneath, let's see, underneath where it's talking about, not sure why I can't get back into it, where it's talking about related articles, right, or the cited by. So cited by, that's going to be the information or the articles that follow later, but related articles, a lot of times you're going to find the same information. Related articles is what you're going to find down here in the references. And so this again is another great jumping off point to be able to go in and say, oh, okay, well this particular article that was talking about hunger and how it affects students' academic performance, right, this is going to be other articles that are going to talk about that as well. Alright, and so that kind of wraps up a quick but not so quick understanding or introduction to how to read or how to find peer-reviewed literature, and also how to use Google Scholar in order to find that literature, peer-reviewed literature, primary articles, to be able to help you in your research. I hope that this particular video was helpful. I will link in the description a link to the Google Drive worksheet that I have, so if you need a little bit more help in using Google Scholar, kind of understanding peer-reviewed literature, then you'll be able to find that and use that worksheet to help you in your search. And happy hunting and finding science on Google Scholar. I hope that you are able to use this to your success, and have a great day.